This article talks about the sibling relationships and how it can affect loneliness. So they focus on the sibling like rivalry, competition, um, powerness like of between the siblings and how it affects adolescents to have loneliness. And so they define loneliness as a feeling of not in the sense of not having any friends. It can be that you don't have any friends, but also that if you have a lot of friends, the feeling that you don't have the connection with them that you want. So saying like, oh, I could have like 100 friends and somebody else could have 100 friends, that person doesn't feel lonely because they feel like they have a connection with their friends. But the other one can feel like, oh, like I have all these people I know, but like I don't connect with them on like a personal level that makes me feel like I'm still isolated from people. Um, and then they use this with the connection of sibling relationship and how the relationship can affect one's loneliness in adolescence, and they define adolescence as young adults. So they used college students, but they saw that in previous articles. They don't really talk about that, but like they do talk about how loneliness does affect people on a personal level, and they wanted to see the connection between the loneliness and the if it had a correlation with sibling relationships. Okay, so the method in which they did this is that they had like a different like point scale, and it was with college students, and they interviewed them and they saw like who they were living with, um like who they living in the sense of did they live with family or not, um if they felt lonely, if they sorry if if they like they were in college or whatever, and they wanted to see if they had a connection between power, the siblings. They talked about the rivalry they had with their siblings. They talked about those kinds of things, and how they feel their connection with their sibling is, whether it's distant or close. And then they talked about how like the relationship between the siblings are like how often they talk. Then the results showed that the siblings, it was pretty equal distant between whether the siblings were of how many siblings each person had. So it was about like I don't have the exact number, but it was like around like 35 for if you had one other sibling. If you had two siblings, it was about like 32, I think. And then it was like 31, like no, like 33 if you had four or more siblings. So it was like pretty like equal. It wasn't like too drastic that it was like, oh, 51% of people had two, like one sibling or whatever, which was good because it made the data more reliable. But then it also shows that like they also did it that they talked about, and they found that most of the people did not live with any family members, and the fewest amount of people lived with family members. Then they found that there was a connection between like if you had a rivalry with your sibling, and whether that because that affected them. So they found that if you had a rivalrous relationship with your sibling, and it was very very competitive, then it ended up carrying on into other relationships that you had with other people. And then they found that that was a true connection with loneliness, because since you competed with so many people, you never really connected with them. So you end up not really having a connection with others. So then you end up feeling lonely. So they found that was one of the connections with sibling rivalry. And they also found that not a lot of people talk about how the quality of a relationship of the siblings is deeply connected with the fact of whether they are of half siblings, full siblings, or step siblings. So they found that like, oh, they should do more research on that further on in like more research. Like if they were to do a study again, they would also focus on that aspect. They did focus on it a little bit, and they like identified how much people were of half full or step siblings, but they thought that it should be more targeted towards that.